Vivek asked me to speak on some universal religious principles tonight, so I'm trying to do so. In my life, I found real religion is not about being a Hindu or a Jain or a Parsi or a Sikh. Real religion is not about being a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim. Real religion is about loving God and dedicating one's life to be an instrument of God's compassion, kindness toward other living beings. Real religion is about developing real character, the character of compassion, the character of humility, the character of morality, the correct character of determination to grow in all circumstances. And I found whether one is a Buddhist or a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a Jain or a Parsi or a Hindu, where these qualities are there, there's real divinity. And while we have a tendency to fight about, which rituals we perform, or which interpretation, or which scripture we may follow, we often miss the point of the essence of what all of these rituals and all of these scriptures are trying to teach us, to develop these qualities, to see every situation as an opportunity to grow closer to God and to grow. Like the redwood tree. To see beyond the appearance of things and see the gifts of life. Like I was privileged to see in that leper woman. And when we associate with people who share that common passion to strive for this, to strive for the essence in whatever background they may have, that's truly a blessing. Thank you very much. Anyone like to ask any questions or speak anything?
Did your book be read about the love for Radha-Krishna? How does that relate to the relationship you said? And that happened after you saw, tested a lot of other options.
Yes. It's not that we have to suffer to see opportunities, even in the most blessed, beautiful, good situations. We should, if we're looking for the opportunity, we will see. The Bible, it is said, "Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door will open." That is a universal principle. The love of Radha and Krishna, that is a very high, beautiful subject. But in the Vedic perspective, God is both the all-pervading impersonal force that pervades everything, and God also is the Supreme Person, who has a form, who has a personality, but who is divine, unlimited. And that absolute truth has both a male and female aspect. And Radha is the female aspect of the Absolute, or God, and Krishna, in the Vedic perspective, is the male aspect of God. Just like in this world, we find the attraction between male and female, and we see the qualities of male and female. The female nature is to be very compassionate, to be very caring, to be very attentive to details. And the general male tendency is to be more, discriminating as far as, how to do it and how to get it done. So we learn from the Vedic scriptures that the absolute truth, or God, or Bhagavan, is both male and female. And the female is the Radha is the compassionate side of God. And the love between the male and female aspect of the one truth is actually the source of all love, the origin of all love. Does that answer your question? Is there any other questions? Or would anyone like to speak something?
You have met many extraordinary persons in your journey. And obviously you're fortunate to meet them because they're not the daily routine that you find. That has been one of my biggest findings from the group, that there are personalities who are their mind, really pure mind, and somehow many of them identified you as a special person. There isn't quite a mystery in my mind, anything like this. It's not a question, it's just observation.
Practically everyone you read about in that book, Vivek was good friends with all of them. That's how we first met. He told me all the people he knew. He looked at every photograph in the book and told me the history he had with each and every one of them. And every single photograph, except Tatwala Baba, I think, through his mother or his father or personally directly. So it was like we were old friends who grew up together, who had just met. But if we're sincerely searching, then through destiny, God can guide us to the most beautiful people. And also to other types of people, to learn good lessons from both the dark and the bright sides of life. I'll tell one story. When I was just finishing this book a couple years ago, The Journey Home, I was going to places and trying to meet people to refresh my memory. So you may remember there was one yogi I lived in a cave in the jungles of the Himalayas. His name was Tatwala Baba. So I decided to go to his cave again after it was about 37 years since I was living there. And when I went to the cave, I saw it boarded off. And there was a big lock on it. and a sign saying, "No trespassers." Now, when I lived there long ago, this cave, it was in the middle of a beautiful forest, and I used to sit in the cave with this yogi who would sit in meditation. We'd look down at all the animals and all the forest, and distance away we could see the Ganga and the higher mountains of Himalayas. It was a cave that was actually near the top of a mountain. Beautiful place. So I tried to find out, why is it boarded off? Then I discovered that the forest department evicted all the yogis of all the caves in that area and boarded off their caves and was arresting them if they tried to get back in, because they wanted to develop that forest for more tourist purposes. I was thinking yogis living in cave would be a very good tourist site, but then I heard that the main disciple of Tatwala Baba, because Tatwala Baba left this world in the middle of the 70s. So I was directed to a place where Shankar Maharaj, his main disciple, who I knew back in 1971 when I lived there. And interestingly, I found he was living in a back kind of storeroom to a government guest house. And there was all these foreign tourists from Russia and Israel and America and Germany, all living in the rooms and just doing whatever they were doing outside. I was thinking, I can't imagine Shankar Maharaj living here. And I went in the back. Should I continue the story? And I went into his room, and he was sitting on a wooden bed, and all around his bed was stuff, all kinds of stuff, mountains of blankets and leopard skins and different kinds of rocks and stones and little gas cookers. And it was just, it looked like just junky stuff all around his bed. And I asked him, what are you doing here? And he told me how the government evicted him from the cave. When he was 15 years old, he went to live in that cave with Tatwala Baba. Now he's about 85. And he said all the other yogis, they were evicted, but Shankar Maharaj filed a case against a court case against the forest department to get all the caves back for the yogis. So all the yogis, because they had nowhere to go, but the government the forest department had to give him a place because he had to appear in court all the time, so they had to know where to find him. So they gave him this room. So all the other yogis, whatever stuff they had in their cave, they just threw in his room, and they went off into the mountains. So he was telling me, we were sharing memories about the good old days. And suddenly, as we're talking, now he's got a big long gray beard and long gray hair, and he wears a turban, and he's about 80 years old, and he's sitting in a lotus posture on this wooden bed. And I hear there's different types of modern music that these different tourists are playing all over the place. You can hear it. They have their radios and their tape recorders, and they're playing. As we're talking, suddenly I heard this really loud sound, pretty loud. It went, it was some kind of music, some kind of discotheque music or something. It was, and I couldn't believe that it sounded so loud in his room. And it just kept playing and playing and playing. I was wondering, this poor yogi, what he's subject to. Then he reached down into the stuff, and very gracefully, he picked up a very, very old burlap bag that was tied on the top as this music's playing. And he unwrapped the burlap bag and reached into it and took out this plastic bag that looked really old too. And it was tied in a knot in the top. And he untied it and opened it. And then he stuck his hand in and he pulled it out. And it was a cellular phone. And from the cellular phone was this da 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 da, this disco music. And he just pressed the button, put it to his ear. Om Namah Shivaya. Happened to be his lawyer to tell him about the next case. So I asked him, why do you have that ringer on your phone? and he said that he didn't really know how to use cell phones, but because he's fighting the case, one of his disciples from New Delhi came up like about 6 months before, hasn't come back, and gave him a cell phone and said, in order for you to talk to your lawyer and everything and keep in contact, you should have this phone. Now, there's a whole menu of different ringers for the phone. Which one would you like? So he read him all the different ringers, and one of them was trance. So Shankar Maharaj said, yes, that's the one I want. That's the perfection of yoga, is to go into trance. But little did he know that it's trance music, which is da-da-da-da. And he said, I hate this music, but I don't know how to change it. And that person never came back. Well, what yogis have to endure these modern days. I know less about it than he does. Very good observation. So when I left him, he was still had this trance programmed in his phone. So I went back up to see the caves, and they're all boarded off. I just wanted to sit outside and try to get some memories. And while I'm sitting there, another yogi comes up, barefoot, just wearing one little piece of loincloth around his waist, matted hair, beard. Looks like a very traditional sadhu. And he said, this cave is boarded off by the government department, forest department. I said, yes, I can see. He said, would you like to see a cave where a yogi is living inside, even today? He said, let me take you. It's my cave. So we climbed up a few little hills, not far away, and he took us into his cave. We had a little fire pit for fire sacrifices, yagyas, and he had trident, and he had a little altar, and he gave us a little prasad. And I asked him, how is it that all the other yogis were evicted from the caves, but you get to stay in your cave? I couldn't believe the answer he gave me. He said, because I'm a government agent. I said, you mean you're not a yogi? He said, no, I am a yogi, but I'm a yogi government agent. And he told me that he made a deal with the government that let me keep my cave and I'll be an informant for you. And if any of the other yogis try to get their caves, I'll tell on them. I'll report them to you and you could come and put them in jail or do whatever you have to do to them. But just let me be and I'll guard the whole forest and make sure no yogis come here. Just let me stay in my cave. So he was very proud of his status. There's politics even among yogis in this modern day, in this modern age.